My name is Morgan Mackay. My presentation is going to be on biodiesel and the production of biodiesel from algae. So biodiesel is a non-toxic and biodegradable fuel, and it's typically either made from vegetable oils or cooking oils. Biodiesel is a long chain of carbons with hydrogens attached, and it has an ester functional group at the end here shown in blue. Diesel engines can burn biodiesel fuel with little to no modifications, except for maybe replacing some rubber tubing that may soften with biodiesel. Because chemically, biodiesel and petroleum diesel are very similar. If you look at the petroleum diesel here, they also have a long carbon chain with hydrogens attached. The only difference is it doesn't have the ester functional group at the end there. Converting vegetable oil to biodiesel is called a trans-esterification process. The reaction requires methanol here and a catalyst here. The catalyst can be either sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide. The methanol here breaks the bonds between the long carbon chain and the ester functional group here. The methanol then bonds to where it broke the chain right over here. And then that separate ester functional group here becomes glycerol. The glycerol is denser than biodiesel, and it will settle to the bottom of whatever tank you are making this in, so it's fairly easy to be removed. And then the excess methanol is just vaporized out. Biodiesel is the single most effective greenhouse gas reduction technology that exists for diesel engines today. Biodiesel releases a lot more energy when burned than it costs to make it. The U.S. Department of Energy and the U.S. Department of Agriculture in 1998 studied the life cycles of the energy balance in biodiesel. They concluded that for each unit of fossil fuel energy used in the entire diesel production cycle, 3.2 units of energy are gained when the fuel is burned. That is a positive energy balance of 320%. Biodiesel can either be used in its pure form or it can be mixed with petroleum diesel. When mixed, this is called a biodiesel blend. Blends are identified with the letter B and then followed by a number, which is the percentage of biodiesel in the mixture. For example, one of the most popular blends is B20, which means it is 20% biodiesel and 80% petroleum diesel. The renewable materials that biodiesel can be made from are plant oils, such as canola, soy, coconut, hemp, etc., or waste cooking oil, such as yellow or trapped grease. Other oils, such as from fish or algae, animal fats, such as poultry fat, beef or sheep tallow or pork lard, and potentially from cellulosic feedstock, which consists of agricultural and forest biomass, such as wood chippings. So I'm going to go into more detail just about algae oil. So first of all, what is algae? Algae refers to a great diversity of organisms. It has over 100,000 species, from microscopic cyanobacteria, such as pictured here, to kelp up here. Algae are mainly aquatic, eukaryotic organisms, and most of them are photosynthetic. There's a lot of genetic diversity between all the different kinds of algae. Algae grow naturally all over the planet. They grow under optimal conditions. They can grow massive and almost like limitless. Algae only need water, sunlight, carbon dioxide, and a few inorganic nutrients to live. They're fairly simple. In terms of their actual composition by weight, lipid oils make up half. Algae were first explored as a fuel alternative in 1978 by the U.S. President Jimmy Carter. He was concerned about the prices of gas increasing and the lineups at the gas pumps, and he assigned the task of researching algae oil as biodiesel to the Aquatic Species Program, run by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. They concluded that this could replace fossil fuels for heating and transportation purposes. Now it is the oil that is in the algae that we are interested in for making biodiesel. This oil can be removed from the algae walls in numerous ways. The oil press, number 1 here, is the simplest method, and therefore the most popular. It works relatively the same way as an olive oil press. This method yields around 75% of the oil from the algae. The second method here is the hexane solvent method. It is a 2-step method. So first you do the oil press method, and then the leftover algae is mixed with hexane, filtered and then cleaned to remove all traces of the chemical in the oil. This method yields up to 95% of the oil from the algae. The next is the supercritical fluids method here, number 3. This method can extract up to 100% of the oils. In this method, carbon dioxide is heated and pressurized to change its composition into both a liquid and a gas. The carbon dioxide is then mixed with the algae, which turns the algae completely into oil. Although this is the most effective method, it requires a lot of additional equipment and work, therefore making it the least popular. There are primarily 3 ways that you can grow algae. The first is open pond growing, the second is vertical grow / closed loop production, and the third is closed tank bioreactor plants. So open pond growing. It's the most natural way for growing algae. Algae are grown in warm and sunny parts of the world in order to get their maximum production. Although this is the simplest methods, it does have its drawbacks. The weather or contaminations from outside organisms or bacteria can hinder the algae growth. And the water has to be maintained at a certain temperature. The bottom 2 pictures are just of the open pond growing plant. So here is water here, and then this section is just enlarged here. Now for the vertical growth or closed loop production method, it's where algae is placed in clear plastic bags to ensure sunlight exposure on more than just one side. The bags are then placed up high and they're protected from rain. This increases the production activity of the algae and therefore more oil is produced. The bags also protect the algae from outside contamination. So you can see here that they're in bags and they're placed up high as well as here. So they can do photosynthesis on more than just one side. They can do it on 2 or even 4 sides here. For closed tank bioreactor plants, the algae are grown in large, round drums indoors under ideal conditions. They can be harvested every day. This yields a high output of our algae. And you can see here, there's some photos of the bioreactor plants. Now all 3 of these ways to grow algae, they can be strategically placed near energy plants to capture the excess carbon dioxide that would otherwise pollute the air. There are many advantages to using algae over conventional food crops for biofuel. Algae can produce up to 300 times more oil per acre than conventional food crops, such as palms or soybeans. Algae also grow 20 to 30 times faster than conventional food crops, which therefore allows several harvests in a short time frame compared to conventional crops' yearly harvest. The harvesting cycle of algae is between 1 to 10 days. Algae can be grown relatively anywhere, whereas conventional crops have to be grown on fertile land. Now, for the pros and cons of using algae in general to make biodiesel. A pro is that algae biodiesel is non-toxic. It contains no sulfur and is biodegradable. Also, it is essentially carbon neutral. The carbon that is emitted when the fuel is burned had just been consumed by the algae. So that means that the net CO2 emission is essentially the same as if the algae had never been grown. Some other pros include that algae is inherently renewable. Also, the many advantages of algae over crop-based biofuels, as mentioned earlier. The waste CO2 in the wastewater from algae can be used as nutrients, such as fertilizer. And you can make this biodiesel at home. One of the cons, as mentioned before, that open pond production is risky in terms of contamination. Also, the algae growth production does require a lot of land and water. A concern also is with some scientists doing genetic modifications on algae to produce optimal strains. If perhaps a breeze picked up some of these genetically modified algae and distributed them to nearby fields and streams, they could displace natural strains of algae, alter the ecosystem, and perhaps get into the human food chain. There is also the issue of some algae biodiesel not flowing well at low temperatures because of the relatively high amounts of saturated and polyunsaturated fatty acids. Another problem is the price. The cost per gallon currently is too high, and the price of what it will be in the future is not quite yet clear. Taking everything into consideration, overall, I think that using algae for the production of biodiesel looks very promising. Thank you for watching.